Good evening and welcome to the public hearing for the North Andover Old Center Historic District Commission. Prior to starting the meeting, I would like to read the following statement. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This public hearing of the Old Center Historic District Commission will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting live may do so on their televisions by turning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public hearing, please email your question or your comment prior to or during the meeting to hazanoian@northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. Okay, I need a motion to call the meeting to order.
This is Leslie. I'm moved to that we open the meeting.
I will second it, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, meeting is open. Is there any old business? First, number 2 on the agenda. Is there any old business that we would like to discuss? Anyone? Okay. Number 3, application for a certificate of appropriateness for 113, 115 Andover Street for installation of a 40-foot yard wood fence and a surround for their dumpster. So, Elizabeth, are you going to present for us?
Sure. Would you like me to share my screen? Would that be the best way to do that?
No, the way that you, so that the public can follow along. Just when you're speaking, we all have copies from the share drive, including the public.
Okay.
So they have all access to the documents. So you only have really one document, the application for certificate of appropriateness, the 113-115 Andover PDF. Just let us know what page you're referring to as you speak, and it'll all be from that one PDF.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Well, so first, good evening, Mr. Chairperson, and to all of the commission members. My name is Elizabeth Curie-Soul, and I'm a project manager with the trustees, and I'm here tonight representing Stevens Coolidge House and Gardens in reference to a proposal for aforementioned yard fence and dumpster enclosure to be located behind our double house, located at 113, 115 Andover Street. The intention of the proposal is to buffer existing visibility of an existing maintenance yard that's located to the rear of the double house. This maintenance yard has been in operation since the trustees began managing Stevens Coolidge in the 60s and was used as such before, actually. So we're proposing to buffer that visibility from Andover Street by using a fence that's intentionally designed in a style appropriate to the mid-19th century building. As you will see in my my proposal, and I'm going to recommend taking a look at the plan and elevations. 113, 115 Andover layout plan and elevation is the title of that sheet. And it illustrates the location and length of the proposed fence, and also shows an elevation of the northeast view, which is the view of most concern. It's the most visible from historic Andover Street. You'll see in this elevation, the yard fence is proposed to be a 6-foot height to fully cover the staging area and would run the full length of the 40-foot yard. We're currently proposing a fence that would be painted white. However, we're certainly interested in hearing from the commission if there are alternate thoughts on this, either doing a natural fence or something that would be painted dark green, or something that might disappear from the view. And then also you'll see on this page an elevation of the proposed dumpster enclosure. We need to have some type of waste management system on this side of the property. Of course, there is a requirement by the Board of Health that all dumpsters have enclosures. So this would be in the same style as the yard fence, that same historically appropriate style. And I would be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have on either the design of the fence or anything else that might be coming up.
Okay. So I can start. So currently, Elizabeth, all that you had has been a temporary dumpster permit, correct?
We have a temporary dumpster permit. I think I'll have to ask my colleague to speak to that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is located in this area. Of course, it was used in part for the project that took place.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're looking to formalize a, final permit for that.
Mm-hmm.
So can I just ask, sorry, where is the documentation for this petition?
Yeah, this, so Kim, if you go to the agenda and go to number 3, and you'll see in blue, 113, 115 Andover Street.
Yeah.
If you click, excuse me, if you click on that,
yeah,
that
I got a blank.
there should two documents, right?
No, I got a blank page. All right. Well, I'll have to.
Wait.
Kim, I'll send you the agenda. I'll send you the link to the documents.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Now I got to go back to that.
So I just want to clarify, Mr. Chairperson, I've just have been communicating with my colleagues. So there's actually no dumpster there currently.
Okay. So I understand the trustee's position in terms of, the claim that this property has in the past been used for various, for lack of another word, maintenance type activities, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. But it was a rented home. It was a home that was utilized as a residential home for many, many, many years. And what is becoming obvious, at least, to me, I'll let the other commission members have their chance to speak, is that, due to the expansion, sort of the footprint of the current Stevens Coolidge project and property, that activity level has also increased significantly. And I think my concern has been and continues to be the relevancy of the deterioration of the property as it relates to the appropriateness of the use of that facility in terms of encouraging more and more of that structure sort of leaving what its intent was, which was to be a residence, and becoming more of a facility. So I have a hard time expanding sort of additional architectural elements, if you would, for the property. I mean, I don't know how much history that folks have with this property, but it actually is a very, very historical piece of property. I mean, I know it looks like a brick duplex, but you could see that Mrs. Coolidge didn't always own that parcel of land. As a matter of fact, because it's separate from the rest of the Stevens Coolidge property, one would wonder why it is that it was carved out to begin with. And if one looks at
Harry,
that property,
Harry,
yeah,
I can tell you
Yeah.
exactly the history of that property.
yeah, I've gotten some of my history on this property, Marty.
Well, I was a curator there back in the 70s, and Kathy Siscom also remembers a lot of this. But that duplex was built by Mrs. Coolidge's father, Henry Stevens, and the location is what was there was the original tavern, and they moved the tavern from that location to attach to the main building, which is still there. And they built in its place the brick duplex, which I think at the time was hoped to be part of the wonderful new urban downtown of North Andover, close to the old center. But of course, that never happened. But it was retained by Henry Stevens as a residence for various rentals. And when the Coolidges took that over, I think they had employees who lived there. And definitely when the trustees took over, they had employees who lived there. And half of the building was used by the Historical Society for storage. So it's been there before the Coolidges took over.
Kathy, did you want to add anything?
Can you hear me, Harry?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, thanks, Marty. Yeah, the only other thing I would add, I'm not so sure if this is pertinent to the discussion, but in 1969, the town was considering taking over the Stevens Coolidge Place for a new high school. And the trustees obviously were not too happy about that. They had an open house for the whole town to come to, and people came, and then at town meeting they voted not to take the property by eminent domain. And as far as the townhouse goes, Marty is right. It was built, as you all can see it. I mean, it kind of sticks out odd on this street of older homes. And the reason being, as Marty said, Andover Street was going to be the road to the old center, which would have been hustling and bustling with businesses and all this. Mrs. Coolidge didn't like that. So what she did is she offered the town land behind her house, which turns out today to be Route 125, and said, I will let you take this land for the main entrance to the town of North Andover from Route 114 if you build under the road a passageway for my cows to get from the Stevens Coolidge place to the other field, which is still next to Harrison's roast beef. It's still part of the Stevens Coolidge place. So state agreed. So now there is a cow passage under Route 125 that takes animals to the other side. Of course, it's filled up with debris and all that stuff now. But those townhouses were supposed to be built and built and built, and people would come because it would be the wonderful road to the business area of North Andover. And Mrs. Coolidge didn't like that at all. So that's how she actually, how 125 came into being. And the townhouses, that was not the only one that was supposed to be built. I think I'm correct on this, Marty. They were going to build more because everyone said, well, people would love to live in the townhouses because it'll be on the trolley road. It'll be into the road to, you know, the business section of North Andover, et cetera, et cetera. So it does have a very interesting history. And of course, because Mrs. Coolidge gave the land to the state, which is now 125, there was no need to build townhouses because they couldn't sell them, stating that, you know, you're on the main drag and there'll be all kinds of business. So they just didn't build anymore. I think I'm right on that, Marty. Your opinion?
I only go as far as Henry Stevens building the building. Whether he had visions of the future, he probably did, but
Yeah.
after he died, it just stayed there.
Yeah.
And there
Well,
was.
Go ahead, Marty.
But you're right that Andover Street was the main road going into the old center, then hooking up with Osgood Street and heading up toward New Hampshire. That was the main road that was supposed to be widened, and then Mrs. Coolidge decided to sort of reroute the traffic away from in front of her house.
Right. Exactly. I
So
don't know where I.
for that.
More than enough history for you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys for that. So my perspective on this is that I honestly struggle with the appropriateness of providing these architectural features. I don't fundamentally believe that it is in the spirit to preserve or protect the distinctive characteristics of either the historical or the architectural aspects and the significance of the building and the site. I think, Elizabeth, you're correct. I think it's merely for screening. It's merely for, you know, putting up for the benefit of enhancing and furthering, you know, the use of the facility, which we don't, you know, it's a residential building. But, you know, I thought about it and said, you know, if any other home in the district, any other residential home came in front of us and wanted to put up a permanent dumpster and put and utilize, you know, screening for the purposes of providing, you know, maintenance type activities behind their home, you know, how would I feel about that in terms of the district? And I struggle to be supportive of that. That's where I'm at. I mean, there would be uproar if I wanted to put a dumpster in the back of my yard. There would be uproar if I wanted to, you know, have maintenance, you know, vehicles and structures in the back of my yard. You know, I mean, to that point, you know, we were told also that the parcel of land across the street, which was previously used for light parking, it was light parking, which was used for, was going to be used for only for, you know, very few vehicles for staff that worked on site. Well, you know, there's a dump truck with a plow. I'm losing the term there, but there's a trailer that's been parked there continually now, which is just going to continue. It's just, you know, I appreciate that the trustees need to have a place to maintain their property. I got that. But this isn't part of that. This is a carved out separate 1.08 acre parcel that's a residential property that has characteristics that need to be preserved for the town and for the center. It was represented. We look around. Is there any other brick duplex anywhere in the district or anywhere, within the whole region? No, there isn't. So to start to lose those the architectural value to me is significant. And I'm not sure that I can support it. But let me go around. We'll get other people's opinions. Brian, I got you first on my list.
Yeah, Harry. I kind of similar to you. I'm kind of torn on this. Prior to the major changes that were done, which is, they've done a fantastic job with redoing it and getting that entrance off of Andover Street, which is great. But the reality is they took the place that they used to store their materials and store all their stuff out in the field, and now that's like the grand entrance. So now they need to move that to someplace, and I struggle with that. We have to, like you say, take the characteristic of that area away for them to have to store stuff behind that building. And I don't ever remember any material and stuff stored behind there. I know that they maybe put their tractor in the garage there, or maybe a truck in the garage, but I don't ever remember any material. The material was always stored in that old garage, which is now what these main entrances. So I'd be interested to kind of hear what others have to say, but I'm torn on it, and I struggle with it, that this part of the property has to be sacrificed because they didn't plan when they put a new entrance in to put this someplace else.
May I interrupt and just speak to that, please?
You could.
So I hear what you're saying. We did take let's see, like a 3 or 4 bay garage shed structure, open structure, and we moved that and repurposed it for our Garden Gateway building. But the sort of space that was around that shed, the like storage space that was offered there, we are actually building a new shed that is outside of the historic district, close to the Garden Gateway building, that is going to fill the missing space that was lost when we repurposed that shed. So we're actually moving a significant amount of infrastructure and sort of maintenance needs that were historically in the 113, 115 Andover building, as well as to the rear of that building. And we're actually taking that infrastructure and those space needs, and we're moving them over to the new Chickering Road side of the property. So that was all done with the understanding in mind that we are trying to maintain this space 113, 115 as cleanly and historically appropriately as possible. So the intention of this project really is to better the existing conditions that we have there. We have historically stored things behind that building. We've historically stored things against the north elevation of that building. And one of the intentions of this project is to clean up that view and to keep staff from kind of spreading slowly over time to the north of that building. So the fence would help us to limit the spread of that maintenance yard that has been happening over time. So this is not really an expansion. This is cleaning up an existing program, and in fact, moving a good chunk of it to the new sort of modern contemporary Chickering Road side of the property and outside the historic district. So
Well,
if
then
we,
why wouldn't the dumpster go there?
we do actually have some waste management on that side as well. It's actually a large property. We have all of our offices located in the 113, 115 building. So that is a building that generates trash. So we really are needing to have some kind of waste management on this side of the property as well.
So Harry, can I say some things? This is Kim.
Sure.
Yep. So one thing I think about what the trustees is doing here is actually developing the property beyond what its original function was. And when I look at this picture, I see the dumpster enclosure as almost as large as the maintenance yard. And I don't understand why you need to have a footprint that's almost the size of the house, representing a maintenance yard and a dumpster area. So basically this large waste maintenance area. And then as Harry says, you've got all of your maintenance trucks on the Andover Street in a small little parking lot. And I do think the trustees is developing this property beyond its original use, just so you can generate income from visits and activities. You're offering more activities and you're bringing on more structures and, other things. And so I think that the footprint that I'm looking at is very large, and it's basically a wasteful use of the property. No other resident needs that kind of trash and waste area. And, you have offices in there, but they shouldn't be generating that much waste. So I actually do, I have no problem disagreeing with the goals of what all this development is supposedly doing to the character of the property. I do take issue with it. A fence here and, a plowed out area there and a maintenance yard here and a dumpster area there. That's nothing like a historic property really should have, to be honest.
Okay, Laurie?
Harry,
Thank
can I ask a question real quick before
Yeah.
just touching base on that? Zoning wise, what is this zoned, this area? Do we
R3.
know?
It's an R3.
So, I mean,
It's
residential.
It's not listed as an office space. It's listed as a residential 3. It's listed as a duplex. It lists out the number of bedrooms, the number of dining rooms, the number of bathrooms. It's a residence. It is listed as a residence.
Zoning. So my question is, per the zoning, can they even put a landscape yard or put a dumpster back there? Isn't there restrictions to that on the zoning?
It gets into the zoning. It gets into the use of the building. It gets into percentages of, certainly people can work out of their home as long as it's a home, right? You can have an office in your home. I couldn't make my home an office. I mean, I couldn't like subdivide it out or make it into all office space. I can't do that. So it does get into the zoning question. It does. But they're in front of us for appropriateness of whether or not we view that to be congruent with, what the site and what the building is in terms of preservation and protection of its distinct characteristics. I think it's continuing, to get creep, so sure, maybe in the 70s and the 80s, when the trustees owned it and they only had, the spring, flower sale, there were no, there were just limited, tours of the home. It wasn't what it is today. And so now we're starting to see more and more creep. My fear, 25 years from now, it's not even a residence at all. It's not even, you know, the structure isn't even, it'll be converted into something that, like Kim said, it was never intended to be. And our job is to help preserve that. I mean, you know, there are only so many structures within the old center. My feeling is I strongly feel that alternatives to what they're trying to use this for should be explored. So I don't feel that it's appropriate. But
I appreciate
sorry.
that, Mr. Chairperson, and I, you know, we certainly have had conversations about this, and I, you know, have moved some significant infrastructure from this space to the gateway side of the property based on those conversations. So I do want to clarify that the maintenance yard is an existing use, and the intention of this proposal is to buffer that view of that existing use. So, you know, it's not the maintenance yard that's in the proposal here, it's the fence. And what we are trying to do is to help the view of that existing maintenance yard from Andover Street, and you know, to keep that view clean to everyone who would be able to see into that yard.
So did you get a permit already for the dumpster? Is that what you're saying?
No, they don't.
No, not yet. We
No, they need to have. They can't get a permit. The Board of Health will not issue a permanent dumpster permit without having plans for the enclosure.
And so
It
what
has
does
to
she
be
mean by
enclosed.
use? What does she mean by existing use? The maintenance yard and the dumpster. What does she mean by existing use?
Well, not the dumpster.
The existing use is so what you see in that plan, as you know, labeled as the maintenance yard, the existing maintenance yard. So that's it's a crushed stone area where staff, we stage items. If we have, you know, a plant delivery, we get plants delivered there, and they could be there for a couple of days. If we get wood delivered,
Didn't you just build something last year that was supposed to house your plants? Didn't you just build a wooden structure last year on the property?
To house the plants. I'm not sure what you're referencing, but what I'm talking about is, you know, if we're replanting the French garden, say, and so we just need a place to have plants delivered. We just need a staging area. So it's not a permanent storage location. It's where we would have things for a couple of days while we're waiting to install them.
And so that's what you call a maintenance yard?
Yes. Yeah.
But you did just build a structure last year, correct?
We built what we're calling a garden gateway building, which was the reuse of that existing shed structure. And that's our kind of welcome center for our guests. That's at the new entrance on Chickering Road. Okay,
so this is what I'm talking about, the use, making this more of a business of activities versus, I mean, I'm not sure you even offer house tours much, but a business of activities, and then you're staging for any of that stuff is what you're looking for. So I guess you consider that current use, but I'm not sure that I do. Existing use, I'm not sure that I do for historic property, but I guess I just wanted clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, I tend to agree, Kim, but Laurie, what do you think?
You know, I'm on, no pun intended, I'm on the fence a little, I guess. I am afraid of the creeping happening. And I mean, to preserve this historic property, you know, if the end result is going to be the same, if they, you know, if you just kind of redo everything all at once or piecemeal, you know, the result will be different. However, I will say that, you know, I appreciate that they are trying to buffer, you know, what could be an eyesore if, you know, there's a lot happening at one time. I don't think a white fence would be the best option. I do think that would stick out like a sore thumb, but perhaps, you know, a natural wood could blend in better with the landscape and kind of have that feel of the old country that it once was. So I guess I'm still unsure. I'm
Mhm.
leaning towards no.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's a 40-foot fence off,
Yeah,
and
that's just
you know,
it. Right. Right.
and so, you know, and you know, I will say this. I mean, Elizabeth and I have spoken previously. Originally, that was at the corner of the house, and you know, a lot of additional work went into trying to offset it and try to minimize it. And I appreciate that work, Elizabeth. I will say that publicly. But it's still a 40-foot fence off of a long building, which historically it's not there. It's like having, in some ways, I have a junkyard and I don't want anybody to see what's behind the fence, so I'm just going to put the fence there, even if it doesn't go where it's supposed to go. And it's not like this is enhancing the preservation or the distinctive characteristics. It's got a purpose. Its purpose is to sort of not expose what's happening behind the fence. You know, and honestly, if it was even 5 dozen plants that were, you know, I drive down Route 125 and they've got, you know, the nursery there that's almost at Ford Hill, and you know they have all the plants laid out on the blacktop, you know, and so forth. And I mean, those are not obtrusive. They're fine. They look okay. I think there's going to be more happening behind the fence than just, you know, a staging area for plants. I think we're seeing, you know, the need. Look, you guys need it. I'm not questioning the need. I'm questioning, you know, its impact to a residential property. That's what I'm questioning, and I'm not 100% behind it. Kathy, what do you think? Yeah.
Can you hear me, Harry?
I hear you.
Okay. I'm not in favor. I'm not in favor of it either. I worked at the Stevens Coolidge, as Marty has said, for about 15 years. And it was, for many years, the trustees took very good care of it. And they had programs sometimes about gardening and all this type of stuff. And I was one of the tour guides. And after reading all of Mrs. Coolidge's diaries, Mrs. Coolidge, and I mean, this is just from remembering, her point of leaving the property was so it could be an example of a gentleman's farm in North Andover. I'm really disappointed that the trustees have added 3 new gardens to Mrs. Coolidge's property because it is no longer her landscape. They added 3 brand new gardens. Mrs. Coolidge, I think, would be turning over in her grave because that's not why she left her property. It was to be a historic example of a gentleman's farm. So this idea that, I know that has practically nothing to do with the issue today, but it just moves me to the idea of creep. That is the word to use. They did that. It is no longer Mrs. Coolidge's landscape. That's why she left it. Now they want the fence. The creep just goes on and on and on and slow. And if we don't stand for, you know, the Old Center Historic District, what our mission statement is, if we don't stand for historic preservation in the true sense of the word, then why are we here? I think that the trustees, this is my own opinion, I don't think they'd be in good stewards of the property. I really don't. It is just so changed, and I don't even think they have tours anymore that explains, I could be wrong on that, I do not know, but I don't think they have tours that explain the life and, you know, a gentleman's farm and what Mr. Coolidge did and, you know, all this and all that stuff.
That's incorrect. We do still have house tours. In fact, we're going through an entire renovation of all of the house interpretation, and we've spent a significant amount of money just restoring all of the collections and opening them up to the public.
Thank you for that. I
Well-
did not know. I had no idea whether you were having tours or not. But I think the word that bothers me is creep, and I see it continually. In the beginning, it was just, oh, we're going to have outside Christmas stuff. Then now it's this, now it's that, now this is it. And it is taking away from the old center. It is taking away the historic architectural significance of that front that you see from Mrs. Coolidge's house through the townhouse, and it is a creep. And we're here to preserve things, not to allow creep. I really feel strongly about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Leslie?
I'm here. I guess I have a different take from most of you. The property has changed significantly. We know that. And I think that it actually has been an amazing transformation. I am quite thrilled with what's happened in that it's finally getting used, whereas a lot of people in town never ever went, and now it has a real purpose and a real inviting look to it that people do want to explore it. Given that, saying that, with an operation like they have now, they definitely have needs. We've all said that. As long as I have been here, which is almost 40 years now, I used to walk in that way because I would walk the neighborhood, and it has always been the working part of the farm. And I felt as though the duplex was the workers who took care of the farm, and their activities were there. It had gotten a bit messy over the years, and I think that what they're trying to do now is to clean that up. So in that way, I actually support this. My issue is that the white fence, I walked there today, 40 feet on that property does not feel that extensive. The gentleman I met today actually showed me where it would end. But from the street, if you have a long white fence on the end of that long white building, it's going to look like it goes forever. I would recommend that instead of white, they either allow the wood to weather to a nice gray and fit in with the trunks of the trees, the stone walls, or that they paint it the green of the doors, the barn doors that are in that far section of the house, something that would blend in with the landscape itself. And in doing that, I think it's going to disappear. And I think it's going to look better than it has in a while. So in that way, I support the project. I think that we are trying to keep it under control by doing this. This is one way to keep the maintenance, which always is going to have to exist. We don't want the property not to be maintained. So I think that by cleaning up the area and keeping things intact and looking good is a positive thing. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Marty?
Okay. Okay. I can sympathize with almost everybody. Well, with Kathy, I worked there in the 70s and 80s, and I could be working there all day and not see a single person on the property. That has changed, and there's nothing is going to go back to that sort of rural gentleman's farm appearance that Kathy and I both enjoyed so much. And I can see how in the progression, I mean, they've made so many changes already that you don't recognize the place, and that something behind the duplex probably would be an improvement. I agree with Leslie that definitely not white, either natural or some painted some dark, subdued color. It's just difficult for me, for the old lady to see so much change. But I'm thinking that this is something that probably would be an improvement. So.
But to both of you, Leslie and Marty, how do you think this? How do you think it may be an improvement, and I would not disagree with an improvement from a standpoint of if I have something there, I don't see what's behind there, and it makes it cleaner. I see that, but how do we address the fact that the historic and architectural significance of the building and the site are now being compromised? How do you address that? I mean, it's like saying, because we've already crossed the bridge, that there's no going back.
Well, to a certain extent, I think the horse has left the barn, and but you do it by making it as unobtrusive as possible, in my opinion.
So I don't agree with that. I think that we should recognize that this is becoming a business over there. They're having beer gardens and yoga sessions and all kinds of activities. So this is now an activity center. It's not a residential. It's not residential anymore. It's not a gentleman's farm anymore. So I'm not sure that I'm interested in sort of ignoring. I don't want to ignore the fact that they want this to become an activity center, and so that all these structures and changes and creep, as some people are saying, are in fact to support that. So I guess it does concern me as to the use of the property, and that somebody else on the street or in the district, if they were turning their backyard into an auto repair area, but they wanted to conceal that, they would put up a fence, but it's still turning into an auto repair center. So I'm just saying that you've got to recognize that this is becoming, instead of a beautiful antique house to tour, this is becoming an activity center. And it's very much promoted that way in the trustees' literature, because I read it that way. So I guess people need to just recognize that and understand that hiding something behind a fence, it may be an improvement, but do we like what's being hidden, to be honest with you?
Yeah, and I would say this. I would say it's not just a building on the campus that the trustees own. It's not. It's its own property. It's 1.08 acres. It's not even part of everything around it. It's its own parcel. It's its own structure. It has its own characteristics. It's the only brick duplex we have that was built to represent something. I've just heard from 2 people on the commission today that told me. It was originally built with the intent of having more of those built if Andover Street had a cable car, trolley car come down and had become a mega center, which it didn't. But it represents some ideology, some history of that sector of the town. To be gobbled up in just be another building, just for utility use, in my mind, is a disservice to the district. That's my problem.
Harry, there is no change being done to the building in the front of the building.
Yes, there is.
On the street,
yes, there
not
is.
on the street. Not,
yes, there is.
Not the facade of the building, the brick part.
It's a residence. Is it being used as a residence? Would you let me put a dumpster that could be viewed from Osgood Street on my property? Would
But
you do that?
This is not a private property. This is now.
Yes, it is.
Commercial venture.
No, it's not. I disagree, Leslie. It's not. Show me where it says that.
Well, it
See,
is.
this is the argument. The argument is it's the old analogy of the camel. First, the camel gets, you know, his nose through the crack of the door, then the head, the neck, the hump, and then next thing you know, the whole camel's in the room. This is not what you say it is. Show me a paper that says it's a commercial facility. Show me a paper that says it has that. It's listed as a duplex that has 3 bedrooms in 1 unit, 1.5 bath, a kitchen, and the same on the other. Just because they use it for something else doesn't make it that something else.
But Harry,
I don't have to.
This is Mike. Can I speak?
Yes.
You can speak, Mike. You're next on the list.
Thank you. I don't think, I'm going to jump in the middle of this. I don't think that we are here to argue zoning and what the building is used for. I think we're here to be viewing the architectural elements and so on of this building and whether a fence in the back is appropriate. And from my perspective, I think that my initial thought was that's great to put a fence across back there because it's whatever has been going on back there, or whether they store plows or whatever it is back there, it would cover that up. I don't agree on a white fence at all. I think it needs to disappear. And I think if a fence is put in, that there should be plantings that are congruent with all of the other plantings along that side of the building to cover the fence for 40 feet, and nobody would see anything going on back there, and it would blend in with the field. But I don't think that we have any jurisdiction over what the usage of that building is. If they, unless and maybe it's a question for somebody that's in real estate that's on this board, but
it's a question of appropriateness of a 40-foot fence, a wood fence, any type of wood fence, on that building and that site.
Yeah, and I'm going to just
say,
say,
and what does it have in front? What does it have in front?
I'm going to say I'm okay with a fence. I would prefer a stone wall or something, but I think it has to whatever goes in there has to disappear from view from Andover Street.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my
I agree with Mike. I do think it can be camouflaged to the point where nobody pays attention to it. And how the house is used inside has nothing to do with us. We only do with what's the exterior look like.
Or the property, but we do have say on the property. We do have say on the property. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, but I think that the property was deteriorating because of all the activity that was going on there with all the building that they were doing. They were dumping.
So here it is.
That's the whole point.
And
that's what you're missing,
now going
Leslie.
to go away. What?
Okay, so in our bylaws, it says any architectural feature that is on the site. A dumpster enclosure. If I put a pergola up, that's an architectural element that is on the property. A dumpster enclosure, a dumpster, is an architectural element that's being proposed on the site. Forget the house. It's being proposed on the site. That, I do not believe, is something that helps support, preserve, and protect the characteristics, the historic characteristics of the house, because it's around the house. You're taking away from the value of the house. Forget what's inside. You're convincing. I mean, it's your vote. You can vote any way you want. I don't have to convince you. I'm just saying it is different. It is very different. Regardless of why I would put one in my house, in my yard, you would argue that it would impact the structure next to it, because it's an architectural element that's being added that isn't currently there.
I understand.
We're acknowledging that it's okay to do that. If they wanted to put a fountain up with a water fountain in the back there, and you could see it, that's an architectural element. This is no different. Forget the purpose. A 40-foot fence is 40 feet. I mean, that's the width of the house. So, you're talking about characteristics on that site that are stone. The house is brick. You're talking about a stone fence, very, very significant, along the whole property of Andover Street, in front of the Stevens Coolidge house. And then all of a sudden, we're going to introduce a new element, a 6-foot by 40-foot fence. That's an architectural element. That's what we're looking at. Forget the purpose of it.
I think
And the other thing is if that staging area is to receive plants, I'm not sure I consider the plants an offensive element that needs to be behind a 40-foot fence. I think the plants being received to be put out in parts of the property is not a big deal. That's an example of what the staging area or the maintenance yard is used for. So, I mean, that assumes that is a representation of the legitimate use. So receiving plants to disperse on that maintenance spot isn't offensive enough that needs a 40-foot fence. The dumpster would be, but I'm not sure I think that they should get a permanent dumpster, to be honest with you. So that's another thing, is if the use is really for what is just being presented here, which is as a staging to receive, let's say, plants, that's not something that really requires to be hidden behind 40 feet of fence, in my opinion.
Well, certainly that was one example of the things that happen in the maintenance yard. The other things that happen are we get dumps, we get loads of mulch that need to be dispersed throughout the campus. We get, piles of stone that need to be dispersed. So I think there are things that are maybe not necessarily as
so I get that stuff in my yard too. I get piles of mulch and stone in my yard to be dispersed as well. And I'm not sure I view that as a necessitating a large fence is my point, I guess. It's just temporary landscaping.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I do also want to address, Mr. Chairperson, your point about the impact of something as long as 40 feet, 6 foot high. It certainly is not. Did Mr. Ozonian just leave the meeting?
For who?
Oh, sorry. It just said that you left the meeting, so I just wanted to make sure you were still here.
No, I'm sorry.
And I really like the idea, certainly, of doing a natural wood fence that would gray out over time. And also, I really like the idea of planting along that edge as well. There's a lot of existing plant material right in that area. As mentioned in the proposal, this is right next to a wetland, so part of this is actually within the wetland setback. And so we would like to plant that edge as well to even buffer the view of that fence more. And I think, whatever transpires tonight, whatever the decision of the commission is, I think we would move forward with planting in that area, certainly.
You're saying independently.
I'm sorry?
You're saying independent of how the outcome of this is.
Yes.
Which you have the ability to do that. Meaning independently, you have that ability now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me understand. Does that mean that if a fence may not be required if you were to do the screening with plants?
I think the reason why we like to start with a fence when we have a buffer situation is because it just takes plants time to grow in. And so if we're looking for that immediate impact, then we generally propose starting with a fence, and then have a naturalized planting that over time helps with that buffer significantly.
Okay, thank you.
I also just want to say that I think this conversation is very interesting, and I'm learning a lot from everybody, and I really appreciate the care that this group has for this structure, and while it is a question, I think I'm appreciating the conversation.
Okay. Does anybody else want to make any other comments?
Yeah,
Harry.
Elizabeth, this is Mike. I just wanted to ask you one more thing about, so is there going to be more truck traffic going back there that would be disruptive to the neighbors and the view from that side of the building?
No, so there would be no truck access on that side of the building. If you look at the plan, you can see there's an existing driveway there, and it doesn't wrap around the back of the house. So we do have our maintenance vehicles as well as contractors and delivery people going in and out of the gravel driveway that is to the south of the building. That connects to the interior of the property and connects to the existing maintenance yard. This proposal would not result in more activity back there. It's really a mitigation of existing activity.
Okay, thanks. And my other question was, how much of a site location project was this to begin with? How many locations on the property were considered before you landed with this one?
That's a great question. We have considered every square inch of this property. This is a very, very challenging site. We have wetlands all over. I'm imagine that some of you may even have experienced how wet this site is. Certainly, if you go there now, you'll certainly experience it. We have an extremely high water table as well as really compacted soils. So the hydrology of the site has been a huge challenge and is part of everything that we do here. As I mentioned earlier, we do have some infrastructure of the maintenance, so that new maintenance shed has been moved to the Chickering Road entrance of the property. And so that's, keeping it out of the wetlands and keeping it out of the historic district. But we really, really do need some level of continued property maintenance on this side of the property. It's a very, very large property, and we have a lot going on right here. You can see in the upper right corner of my plan, that's one of our most extensive gardens, the French garden, the potager garden. So we have a lot of maintenance needs specifically in this area. So we have considered every square inch of this property. I mean, even moving it back, moving all of this use back further, you can see there's an open space that's sort of right behind that 200-foot setback. Even back there, it starts to get wet really fast. And so we certainly couldn't have cars driving back there or delivery trucks back there or anything like that. So this is really the result of some pretty considered thinking about what our alternatives could be.
Okay, thank you.
Is your composting done behind that building?
Behind 113?
Yeah.
No, not currently. We're proposing that compost operations is going to happen on the Garden Gateway side, so at off of the Chickering Road entrance.
Okay.
Harry, Roger here.
Yeah, Roger, How
Yes,
are you? I'm so
I'm
glad you joined us.
yeah, I apologize for joining late.
No, that's no
I'm
problem.
still on mountain time, unfortunately. Got in
Oh,
late
boy.
last night, then a crazy day at work. So I just wanted to make a few comments. First of all, I've probably spent 50 plus years on this property. I live across the street on Dufton Court, Elizabeth. And as a young kid, always out there. I mean, I remember when the cows were out there, the corn, all that stuff. Had a lot of fun. I have been under that cow tunnel many times as a kid.
Good, good,
Oh yeah, yeah, many
good.
times.
Me too, Roger.
And it was a wonderful spot to actually throw snowballs at cars and then hide under there. It was great. So I have seen the changes over time, and quite honestly, at first I was real concerned, but it's starting to grow on me now, and I still spend a lot of time over there. I actually got to know Bob Murray, one of the previous superintendents over there, very well. I bumped into him, I believe it was last winter as things were kind of winding down, and Bob arrived to see how things were going. Bob is, for the folks that don't know, Bob has moved on and been promoted a couple of times, and he's a real big deal now with the trustees.
He's actually my supervisor.
Oh, he's a great guy. Please tell him
He's
Roger
fabulous.
Lawson said hello.
I will.
And I'm a longtime trustee member, so I'm trying to really walk the fine line here. Now, as I said, I've come around. Elizabeth mentioned the repurposing of the shed. Well, that's not the only shed that they lost. There were actually two there, and so they've only repurposed one. So these folks are in a tough spot. I have snowshoed behind this in this proposed area. It's quite messy. There are piles of mulch, stone, plows, small tractors, pickup trucks. I think I would rather see that equipment there, behind a fence, either painted green or natural, or possibly no fence if the trustees purchased very mature plants to get that quick screen, versus across the street in the old parking lot. I don't think any of us would want to see plows over there and trucks and so forth. So as I said, that's where I stand now. I know it's a tough call with that fence, but these folks really do need a place for this type of work and utilities. The dumpster enclosure from the street with that view, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, it looks like a fence, right? I mean, I assume the dumpster would be lower than that, Elizabeth, the height of the fence, or even maybe, so you wouldn't see it from the street.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
Harry, I'm going to say that I'm in, the fence is really what's really holding me up. But because I know these folks need a place, a staging area for the materials. I know that they need it. They had two sheds in the past. They have nothing now. Now, maybe they should have been before us a couple of years ago. I don't know, but as someone else mentioned, we're past that now. I get that, but I just think we need to work with these folks. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Harry, this is Lori. Roger brings up a good point. If they don't do this fence, what's the alternative? And I think that's really the bottom line, what comes in front of us today. You don't have control over the use of the property and the zoning. And if the question is, a fence that hopefully would be, I think, natural weathered gray, that would eventually blend in better, and then strategically placed, plantings. If that's one option, and the other option is seeing vehicles, seeing piles of mulch that might stay there longer than, we would let sit in our yards, just because of the size of the property. The alternative, could be worse, and it might just kind of neaten things up, and that might be what we're faced with, not any other aspect of, the property or what it's become, or, anything that we currently don't like, but really just that. And that does have me seeing, I guess, seeing it a little differently.
Okay.
Harry, I have some additional thoughts. This is Ryan, if possible.
Ryan, you have the floor.
All right. So I love this board that everybody speaks freely on this board, and they don't necessarily go with what other people are thinking, which I think is one of the best parts about this board. And it got me thinking while other people are thinking, we're talking. I look at this as a two-part thing. One with the dumpster, two with the fence. One with the dumpster, I would be a hard no on the dumpster, and here's the reason for that. Elizabeth had mentioned that they have another dumpster over at the garden entrance, which is great. And I understand this would be a convenience thing to have the dumpster over here if this is an office space, which to Mike's question earlier, I think the zoning thing, that's a building inspector, a building department, or zoning department issue, not our issue for what that building use is, which is a residential building in my opinion. But that dumpster is a convenience factor, and they could very easily put 4 or 5 trash barrels in the garage, that they take the trash out of that building, they put it in that trash barrel, they have a dump truck, they put the barrels in the dump truck, they drive the dump truck once every week, twice a week, whatever it is, over to the other dumpster, throw it in that dumpster, that problem solved. You don't have a giant trash truck driving up that driveway once a week, every other week, whatever it is, dumping that trash bin that's there, making all types of noise in that sense. So that to me, the dumpster is a hard no. That's more of a convenience thing for them. There's other ways that they can do to solve that issue. In regards to the fence out back, this is the one that I'm really torn on. Again, I go back to that it's a residential area. They had a space that they were using, which was very appropriate back in the field. Now they made that an entrance. I feel as though that they could do something else. And Elizabeth, I apologize, I haven't looked at the wetlands maps or anything like that. But I just, you have all that field space back there that I feel as though somewhere they could put this where, again, big delivery trucks that are delivering plants, delivering mulch, all that stuff is not going on Andover Street now, which is a residential street, not a commercial street, and then going up essentially, which is a residential driveway to drop all this stuff off. They're coming from 125, which the whole design of that new entrance was to get stuff off of Andover Street, right?
Correct.
So I think, they could get something over there. And I understand the argument of, well, all of our stuff is is more located towards this duplex. But I mean, since the project's been done, I think there's an excavator now. There's at least 2 dump trucks. There's I think a little small front end loader. I mean, they have the equipment to move things around, so they could very easily go from a yard site that's over by that entrance with the equipment they have and bring the stuff over to where they need it. I mean, you look at a golf course, they're able to work out of a maintenance shed that can sometimes be a half mile to a mile away from where they're working, and they're able to get that equipment there. So I'm a hard no on the dumpster. On the fence behind the residential property, I'm still a little bit torn, but that's just kind of some additional thoughts I had there.
Okay, thank you.
Was that Roger?
Yeah, no, that was Ryan.
Oh, Ryan, I just want to say, this is Kim. I actually think you made some very, very good suggestions, alternatives that lets them accomplish their goal, but moving it away from their proposal. So I thought you have good suggestions there. Just want to say that.
Thank you.
Okay. So Elizabeth, I'm just curious. I know that you have and your team has looked at every inch of the property. I know that. Have you considered, as Ryan has indicated, of possibly relocating where the maintenance sort of facility would be on the property?
So we have, and there are some significant things that were located here that we've already moved, specifically that compost system.
Mhm. Sure.
And you're also aware that we were considering having our maintenance shed back behind the hedgerow there as well. And all of those things were moved to the Chickering Road entrance, knowing that we want to limit the impact behind 113. And certainly there are deliveries that will happen at the Chickering Road entrance, and you're absolutely correct, whoever mentioned this earlier, that one of the intentions of having the Chickering Road entrance was to get most of our traffic off of Andover Street. But the extensive nature of the maintenance needs here really do require that we continue to have some maintenance yard capacity on this side of the property. It's just how it needs to be done. It's how the staff needs to operate it. We have we're doing our best with the staff that we have and the maintenance capacity. And we really need to have something on this side of the yard. It's an existing space.
Well,
And
isn't part of the challenge that there was originally the barn, the original barn that was used?
the original barn, the barn that burned down?
No, there was the barn that got moved. That's the center now, right?
The open garage that became the Gateway building.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, we are replacing that use with a new shed that we're building at that side of the property at the Chickering Road entrance. So that storage capacity is going to be replaced at the Chickering Road entrance.
So, I mean, I need to ask this question because this is a parcel in the district that is separate from the main parcel that the trustees has. It's its own parcel, 1.08 acres, right? Has the trustees had any conversation about possibly, separating that out even further, meaning sell it, in terms of take that property, sell that property, let it become a residential property, and maybe take and reinvest some of that money back into a facility that would be more appropriate?
Well, I can't speak to the history of that. My role doesn't really
I know
that sort of information or the history of that sort of information. But I will say that it would be very difficult to, at this point, separate this parcel from the sort of bulk of the acreage. It's so intrinsically tied to the functioning of the property and the operations of the property, and it's a space that we really need and use.
Okay. Is there any other comments before we go to vote?
Yeah, Harry, this is Mike. What jurisdiction do we have over a dumpster being put behind the fence if they do go ahead with it? I know Ryan was saying that he's definitely against the dumpster. So how would that play out? Well,
we in order for the Board of Health to issue a permanent dumpster to anyone, okay, residential or commercial, there's a need that they have to demonstrate that they will be putting it within an enclosure. That enclosure is right now in front of us as something that we're voting on, whether or not we're not voting on whether we think, well, I guess we are by the fact that the enclosure is there. But it's an architectural element that will be put onto the property, onto the site. So what we're voting on is whether or not we are willing to allow another architectural element in the form of an enclosure that houses the dumpster be put on the site. It would be no different than if it was another building or another structure. It's an element. It's an element.
Thanks. Yep, thank
So
you.
anything above grade, anything that's it's higher than grade needs our approval. That's why a fence, pergola, a bench, permanent bench, any architectural element that's permanent structure. I mean, we had conversations with Elizabeth if they wanted to put path lighting that was going to be put in, that was going to be placed there permanently. That's 2.5 feet above the grade. It's an architectural element that's being added. So view it as saying, in a simple way, anything that's above grade that's going to be placed onto the site in a semi-permanent fashion, meaning it's not a lawn chair, it's not a something like that. But as you well know, you were on the commission. The benches that sit in the common, right? The wood benches that sit in our common, those are permanent benches. They're placed there. They're there during the winter. They're there in the spring. They're there all the time. Those benches needed to get our approval in order to be placed there.
Okay,
I
thanks,
don't know
Eric.
if that helps you. That help you?
Yep, thank you.
So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to break that out the two elements separately. We can vote separately. That way there are people who may have feelings on one and not the other. What I clearly heard though was, in terms of the fence, white fence was out if it was going to be a fence. So the weathered gray fence would be what would be in place if that was there. So the first thing let's vote on is on the dumpster enclosure. Now that currently is being proposed as being painted white with wrought iron. Let me look at that. I saw that one. Looking at the details. Oh yeah. So that's currently being proposed as a solid vertical board with white cedar wood fence, flat cap, painted white with iron strap style hinges. That's what's being proposed. So I need a motion. Do people feel that they want it white or they want it weathered? How do they want that? Before we put that in the motion.
And this is for the 40-foot fence?
Well, actually,
No, this is for the dumpster enclosure.
Which
so
is the
actually-
door.
Which is the fence, isn't it?
yeah.
So
Say that
why
again?
I
Say
think
that
we're
again.
confused. You're saying that you're putting the fence, the opening fence is separate from the long fence? The
I'm
opening
saying
gates?
because people had different perspectives, I'm going to break the two pieces of the application into two motions. Motion number one would be for the dumpster enclosure. We'll make a motion, we'll vote on it. Currently, the way that the dumpster enclosure is being proposed, it is also being proposed as a cedar wood fence, flat cap, painted white. I'm asking if we should have a motion that says it's a white painted enclosure, or do people want to put it up as a weathered gray enclosure?
And also part of the motion should be to let people choose to vote against the enclosure.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
what
so.
we're going to be voting. No, that's what we're voting on. I'm just trying to vote. I'm trying to get what is it that we're voting on.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get. So yes, you're correct. We're voting on yes or no.
Harry, could we vote that this be a weathered gray fence? The gate for the enclosure would be the weathered gray as the 40-foot one. We might suggest that too. So just start there with a weathered gray, and then we'll vote yes or no.
Can I?
Can I just ask, I am confused. This is Kathy.
Yeah.
Why don't we vote first of all, whether we're going to allow the fence at all? If we say no, excuse me, if we say yes, that we allow the fence, then we could say what we type of fence or how we would like it to look. I think it's pointless to vote on what we want it to look like, and then we vote on whether we're going to allow the
Okay.
fence.
All right. We'll make a motion first.
Harry, I think there's confusion that some people don't understand. It's two separate things on the plan. So there's a separate area for where the dumpster would be with a 10 by 18 foot block or rectangle around the dumpsters. And then there's a separate 40-foot long fence. So that's why Harry's trying to keep it as two separate things. It's not one item. It's two separate things on page 7 of 7 on the package.
I can make a motion for just the dumpster. Then we can, if we approve the dumpster, then we can talk about whether or not it should be white or whether. I can do that.
Yeah. So just as the chair, you can't make a motion, but I'll make a motion for you if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, please do, Ryan.
Actually, just one more quick thing before we go make that motion. Is there such a thing as a weathered gray fence, or is it natural wood that weathers over time?
It's natural that weathers over time.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
And
And
I don't
Harry,
think, I think that there should be another option on here is whether it should be painted, because I don't think that the fence will weather fast enough, and I think it should be painted a dark gray.
Well, yeah, but what we're doing first, I don't know.
How about Harry, for the purpose of simplicating it, I'll just make a mention about the fence with subject to if it passes, we define what the fence will be.
Perfect.
Okay. And one other question, is this like the zoning board where I have to put everything in a positive for the motion? Like, they always vote they make the motion as yes, but then you vote no against it, I guess. Is that all you have to do this, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, I will make a motion that we accept the fence that in the plan, page 7 in the packet, a 10-foot deep by 18-foot wide rectangle around the dumpsters fence for the 113-115 Andover Street property.
I'll second
Okay.
that, Harry.
Thank you. All right. Now I'm going to go around and people can give me their vote. Ryan?
I am no.
Okay. Laurie?
I don't think we can rule on whether they have a dumpster or not. And if they have one, I vote yes for the fence.
We're not voting on the dumpster.
So
We're voting on
I just
the
said
design.
I'm voting yes for the fence.
We're not doing the fence yet. We're just doing the dumpster enclosure.
All right, the fence around the dumpster.
So you're voting yes.
Yes.
Okay. Kathy?
I vote no.
Kim?
Sorry, I was mute. I'm voting against the dumpster enclosure, so I vote no.
Thank you. All right. Laurie?
I'm going to vote no against the dumpster enclosure.
All right, Leslie,
I'm voting yes with the understanding that this is a working working facility and that they need such a thing.
Mike,
I'm going to vote yes.
Roger,
I'm voting yes.
and I vote no. So we have 5-4. So the dumpster did not pass. We now need a motion on the fence.
The 40 foot
Brian,
fence.
the 40-foot fence.
So I will make a motion that we approve the 40-foot fence on the north corner of 113, 115 Andover Street, with the caveat of if it passes, we then decide what the material would be.
I'll second that as
Okay.
well, Harry.
Hold on. I have to write this.
Yeah, sorry.
Mm. All right, Ryan,
I'm a no.
Kathy,
I vote no.
Kim,
I vote no on the fence.
okay, Laurie,
I'm going to vote yes.
okay, Mike,
I'm going to vote yes.
Marty,
I'm a yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Roger.
I'm a yes.
Okay. So that passed 5-4.
Harry,
Now
you wanna
we
make
have to, yeah,
For the okay. I will make a motion that the fence at the northern corner of 113, 115, sorry, the northern rear corner of 113, 115 Andover Street, be natural wood, 6 feet tall.
I'll second that as well, Harry.
okay.
Can we amend the motion to include the front plantings or not?
Yes.
You can.
So I amend the motion of the natural fence to include the plantings in front of it.
Do you want to specify the plantings?
Amendment.
Shrubs, I
It,
guess. Shrubs.
Can I add to that too?
You can. The motion is still in being, it hasn't been.
So just to
Go
make
ahead.
it more specific, subject to us approving the plan of where the plants are, is, that, so that it's more specific, so they can't just put one bush.
Ryan, that's a good point. We also may want to be able to specify the size of the plants, right?
Right.
Shrubs, yeah. So I'll second that. If we need it, I'll second that.
I gotta say this, guys. As much as I want to do that, I'm not sure that we have the jurisdiction on that.
Okay.
Because their plants not.
Well, we can ask for masking to be in place. If you want to reserve the final motion until you see a plan that's presented, but we don't approve vegetation. It's not in our
Harry,
bylaws. That's not an architectural element, but but what we historically have done is, if masking is involved in a plan, for example, we give the final approval of the plan that shows where the applicant would be putting potential masking.
So do we have to wait for that, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying if you want to see a plan that includes, you know, any type of masking that would be included in the approval, then we would have to make that request for Elizabeth to provide that to us prior to us giving the final vote.
Well, I think that's a very important element to this fence piece, Harry. I think we should include that.
Yeah, do you understand the distinction? The distinction is, for example, on Andover Street, they put some ground solar collectors in there, and we had asked for to be included in the plan if they were going to do any masking, what masking they were planning on doing. But we don't approve, we can't approve plantings.
So if
That's a
Elizabeth
request.
proposed it in the application with screening and names of plants, would we be we would be voting on it as being applied for?
Yeah, but we have no grounds for enforcing that, is what I'm trying to tell you.
But we have asked for it before. We have asked for plantings before on other.
Yes, yes, we ask for masking, and that they provide us with plans of masking. That's true.
So that means
That
we couldn't vote tonight. We would continue.
Harry, is it appropriate to ask Elizabeth right now if she'd be willing to do that for us?
It's appropriate to ask her.
Yeah,
Elizabeth,
I would be happy to provide a plan that shows, locations for plants. I would also really like to close tonight because it's difficult for me to attend meetings in the evening. But I'm quite happy to present a plan that shows planting.
So I guess, Harry, I could go ahead with the motion for the fence, subject to, because no matter what they're going to do, they can do the fence at this point. It's a matter of what the material is, and then subject to them showing us a plan for vegetation at the next meeting, maybe, or something.
This is Leslie. I have one point in that the trustees have horticulturalists on their staff who know a lot more about plantings than we do. So
Yeah, that's Elizabeth.
yeah, and I would say that considering what they've done in the rest of the property, I think we can trust them. They've already said that they want to have plants out there. They mentioned it before we did. So I think that we can specify that we want some kind of camouflaging with natural material and leave it up to them so that she can get on with this project.
So the only
we can't say that though, Leslie. You can't put a requirement on there that includes that. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
Because it null and voids it. It'll null and void it if you do that.
Okay.
We don't have. So let me give you just a quick example. If we put that in there, and not that I mean, if we put that in there, I trust Elizabeth would meet that. I don't have any question about her integrity. But let's say that the trustees said we're not going to put it in, and we said in our motion we approved it with the stipulation that they were going to do it. If they decided not to do it, we have no recourse in enforcing the fact that they didn't do it. That's my point. It's not within our it's not within our bylaw oversight.
So you're saying that Elizabeth would have to present a plan with the masking plants in front of the fence, and therefore we could approve it that way?
What I'm saying is, yes, exactly, Kim. I mean, just like she has on her site plan shown trees and, you know, the location of, you know, so forth, you know, had she put on the plan, for example, you know, I'm not saying this is what I'm recommending, but let's just hypothetically say that Elizabeth said she was going to put a wall of arborvitaes every, you know, 5 feet, let's say. I don't know how that goes, but let's just say on her plan, she had arborvitaes being planted every 5 feet. Then our motion is we accept the plan. You see, we're not accepting the planting. The planting is included as part of the plan, but we're accepting the plan,
So
which
if we
includes
had
the fence.
if we had to continue this, it would probably be, there'd be really no discussion. It would just be a presentation of the fence plan of the fence, 40-foot fence, which would be natural wood with the plantings, and then we could approve it. Is that what we're saying?
We're saying we would approve. I would put a supportive documentation, whatever plan she proposed. That's what I'm saying.
But we've also already stipulated that we're proposing it to be natural wood fence with plantings in front. So that's pretty much what she would have to propose next time, right?
Correct.
To get a quick approval.
Correct.
Harry,
Correct.
right.
we actually haven't decided what the material is yet. We just approved the fence, not the material.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we did. Okay.
So we approved the fence. Is what we did, a 6-foot by 40-foot fence.
But I thought we modified the proposal. I thought we modified it. I thought that it was proposed that it be a natural wood, not white.
That's the last piece that Ryan was putting in front of us, which was the natural wood with plantings in front. And I'm saying we can't put a motion that says with plantings in front.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, I get it now.
We can say, here's what we can say. We can say fence would be made of natural cedar wood, you know, per site plan, you know, blah, 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 that was provided.
But if we want to plantings, we have to have her put it on her plan. Okay.
Or just take her word for it. Because it's like I'm trying to tell everybody, it's not an enforceable motion. We have no jurisdiction on whether she does or she doesn't put the planting. I know people feel more comfortable that it's there, but we have no jurisdiction on whether she does or she doesn't.
But we
That's up
can.
to her.
But we can stipulate that we want it to be a natural wood fence, right?
Correct. That's
okay.
correct.
So I guess it depends on how much people want the plantings to be guaranteed versus just a natural wood fence.
But it's a false guarantee. It's a false guarantee because even if she puts it on the plan and we accept the plan, we can't enforce it.
Okay.
My suggestion is just put a motion in for natural wood cedar and then approve it. And trust that Elizabeth will put the plantings in.
Do we want to ask about a color? As Michael said, it's going to take a long time for a fence to weather. They could put on a natural stain of some sort instead of doing the maintenance of painting it all the time. They could do a natural stain and then have it weather with that stain on it.
Well, that's up to you guys.
Okay. Something we actually did at the Gateway building is we put a stain on that building that helped it to weather quickly. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with how the siding on the Gateway building looks, but
Yeah, Elizabeth. Yes, this is Roger Lawson again. I'm very familiar. I was amazed actually how that instantly looked weathered.
yeah,
So that was
yeah,
that's a great point. Thank you
you
for
could certainly do
reminding
that.
me that you did that. Yes, looks great.
And this is Mike. What the darker the better, because the darker it is, the more it will disappear.
I totally agree with that.
Okay, so how do I put that in this motion?
Boy.
I think
Elizabeth, if you can do it as dark a stain as you possibly can, I think that would be preferable and would go a long way.
but I didn't hear it was a stain. I heard it was like a weathering accelerator. That's what I heard, which is fine. Again, this is not Cambridge, Massachusetts. We technically don't have jurisdiction over color. I'm just trying to tell you guys what we have and don't have the ability to do. If I wanted to paint my house lime green, you guys can't say nothing.
Well, we have the jurisdiction over the material, right?
So, sorry, this is Jeremy from Trustees. I just want to interject here on the materials and the staining question. So, if it's because this would be an important consideration to allow it to naturally weather, like just put the wood out there and let it go. We would probably go with a pine and or a white cedar, like a typical fence type cedar. And
Right.
yes, that would take a couple months before it turned that grayer silvery color. Definitely a couple months, up to a year. If we're going to stain it to achieve a color, then we would probably just go with a straight pine, so that the stain is absorbed uniformly. So more of a traditional pine lumber. The material we used to weather the Gateway building, or that siding out there, was rough cut pine, and then it's a salt based treatment, and it just over the course of an hour it weathers it, and then it just gets darker with time. That material too, we would probably just go with a straight pine for the fence. Just keep that in mind if you want to. I guess you can't dictate color, but if we're talking about material, I guess you can't really choose a material either, can you? Just wood overall. So yeah. So assume if we're going with the pine and cedar, we can stain it, we could treat it to weather it, or we can just leave it. All three would work.
My opinion is just let it go natural wood cedar.
Yeah, I mean,
And my opinion is to make sure that it's as dark as it possibly can be.
Well, it won't be dark when it's put up. It'll have to weather.
Yeah, it'll weather within
And
a year. Our cedar fence weathered in a year.
I mean, cedar is a lot more durable in terms of longevity than the pine would be.
Yeah,
Particularly if you're going to particularly if any organics are put up against it or in the bottom of it. So I would think, from an investment standpoint, the cedar would be a better choice. But
yeah,
I would just put a motion to say, natural wood cedar per the specification that we have in the drawing, and let's just vote and then be done.
Harry, sorry to muddle the water here, but there's like a bunch of different types of cedar, so we'd have to pick, I guess, like the white cedar, red cedar.
It's a white cedar. The white cedar is the standard, I think, for fencing, and that's what they've got on their spec.
Okay.
So we could say natural wood white cedar.
Well, so why don't we do this, Harry? Why don't I make the motion? Somebody seconds it, and then we open it up for discussion. To follow the thing. Is that all right?
I'm ready.
All right. So I'll make a motion that the approved fence at the north corner of 113-115 Andover Street be the material to be white cedar with
natural.
That's natural finish. With the same solid vertical board, flat cap, top finish as presented in the plan on page 7, dated 1/14/2022.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Roger. I'm gonna go around the room. Brian?
So hold on, Harry. You got to have discussion on. So those are
Oh, yeah,
point of
you're
my
right.
discussion.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Dark color. As dark as possible.
But you can't put it in the motion.
Okay, discussion. I'm just discussing.
Well, he could make a friendly amendment on that, but per the discussion. So I guess the question would be: do we want a natural finish or painted?
I wouldn't paint it. I wouldn't paint it.
I vote for dark stain.
You could do a dark gray stain. You could do a dark stain.
Well, that salt additive, that was like magic, as Jeremy said. That's fast. I saw it.
I'm trying. Look, wait, guys. I'm trying to help you. We don't have jurisdiction over that. I want to be clear. The motion as stated is what we have jurisdiction. If after we approve this and they put up the fence and they don't like it the way that it is natural and they want to paint the fence orange, they can paint the fence orange. You have no jurisdiction over color. Whether it's stain, whether it's paint, you have no jurisdiction.
So if can we stipulate that it's natural then, and then we know the color it will end up being?
Right. Good point. Yep. Good point.
So if we say natural wood, we know what cedar will weather to. Can we do that?
That's a true. We can do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Great idea,
Okay, let's
Kim.
do that. Let's just do that. I get a cedar fence. It darkens. It darkens soon enough.
Okay. So is there any other amendments to the motion?
Well, I think my motion had that in there, right? Natural finish, natural white cedar. Right?
Natural wood, white cedar.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the motion. Any more discussion? All right, let's take a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Laurie?
Yes.
Kim?
Yeah.
Kathy?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Are there any other comments or questions? Elizabeth?
Harry, it's Leslie. I just have a question. On the first vote that we took on the dumpster, could you review the yays and nays? Because I had a different count from you. So I'm sure I'm wrong, but I just want to see where.
Okay. Ryan was a no, Laurie was a no, Kim was a no, Kathy was a no. I was a no.
Okay.
Roger was a yes, Leslie was a yes, Marty was a yes, and Mike was a yes.
So you said 5-4. I got 5. Marty, Roger, Laurie, Michael.
No, Laurie was a no.
Oh,
Laurie was a no on the dumpster.
That's where I'm wrong. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Laurie was a no. So Roger was a yes, you were a yes, Marty was a yes, Mike was a yes.
Okay.
So it was 5-4. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. I just wanted it for my records. Thanks.
You're welcome. Elizabeth or Jeremy, any final comments?
Only that I'm grateful for all of your time this evening. And I thank you all for the discussion.
Elizabeth, you're always positive. That's what I like about you. Always positive. You know?
Well, I
right,
very much appreciate your work.
If you need to follow up, Elizabeth, at all, feel free, you can contact me. Otherwise, we'll be issuing the certificate of appropriateness probably within a week, if that's okay.
Okay.
And then you can go from there.
All right. Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And we have to just close out our meeting. Any new business or agenda item number 4? No new business. I will say that I am working with Bernadette to try to schedule the next meetings for us to meet collectively. And we will meet in person. Probably won't be till after mid-March till we get through 3 Great Pond Road, which is our next big application that's coming up on March 17th. Has everybody responded to attending that meeting? Can I just quickly go around? Brian, are you going to be at the 17th meeting? That's on 3 Great Pond Road on the Grange.
Yeah, as of right now, I will be there.
Okay, Laurie, some of you have already responded. I'm just quickly going to go around and make sure. Laurie?
Yes.
Kim?
So I'm unsure.
You're on what? I'm sorry.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, you were a little bit muddled. So are you going to attend on the 17th for the
So
Grange?
I'm unsure I can make the 17th. I haven't responded yet. I'm unsure.
Yeah, it would be really, really, really helpful if you can figure out how to attend that. That's a big application. That's the one with the parking. And
that's on
that's
a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So Thursdays I have other meetings, so I have to see if I have one that night. So I'll try and respond soon.
Make us priority, please. It would be nice for you to be there. Kathy?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
You already responded, I know. Marty?
I responded yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure because we're sending the invite over to the applicant. And so we just need to make sure we have the quorum. Is there any other new business? Otherwise, let's get a motion to adjourn and we'll meet up on the 17th.
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I'll take you, Mike.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. It was a good discussion, good conversation, and a good meeting. So
Thank
I
you,
hope
Harry.
everybody has a good
Yep.
week, and we'll continue to go on to the next application.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Thank
And,
you. Good night.
and you know, everybody read through the materials that are going to be in that share file folder. Please read through it because there's a lot of information that we're going to have to go through. You know, she put the application together, you know, trying to address, remember, you know, there are windows in the basement that, you know, they're recommending be replaced, but they're not really giving us all the info. I got tired of asking for the details. So, you know, there was some plywood and next to, you know, 6 panes and a wooden frame. And, you know, they're saying they're just going to scrape and paint it. So does that mean that they're not going to do anything with the plywood next to it, you know, other than paint it? You know, so there's going to be a lot, it's going to be an arduous meeting with a lot of details. So just please, you know, say that again?
Is that meeting in person or virtual?
Right now, that meeting is virtual.
Now,
Why,
is
do you have
the information in the shared drive based on from the agenda, or is it a separate link?
No, it will be in the share drive based off of the agenda. If it's easy, you know what we can do, if Bernadette's still on, once we get all the information in there, maybe we can have Bernadette just send a link to the share folder to everybody, separate from the agenda, so you guys can take a look at it in advance.
Harry, if anybody's opposed to it, I'm fine with going virtual, but is there any possibility to do it in person? I feel as though we're a lot more efficient and get this done faster in person than on the phone.
Well, you know what, Ryan? Let me check. I'll talk with Bernadette about that. Let me circle back with Bernadette over the next day or two and see if it's possible to do that. I think we have to see if somebody in the board's not comfortable with that, then I'm fine with staying virtual. But I just was curious if people would be okay with being in person. Yeah, let me look into that.
Harry, I'm looking at my invitation to that meeting. It came in on February 22nd, and there is no Google address to click onto on that. So just make sure that when we do get the information back, if we do go virtual, that we have an address, a Google address.
Yeah, the reason for that is because Bernadette sends out the initial meeting invite to the commission for us to get a quorum. Once we get the quorum, she posts the agenda with the Google address to the invitees of the application. We don't want to send it out in advance and then not have a quorum and have to retract it.
Okay.
So
that's how I got so messed up last time.
Well, she did send one out today that has the Google address.
For today's
meeting. Today's meeting or the 17th?
The 17th. She sent an invite out today. An update.
Yeah, that might have been after I spoke with her, because I think at that time we did have the quorum. There were just 2 or 3 people that hadn't responded that I said I'd confirm tonight. So I think we had the quorum. So she might have already sent it out.
Yeah, there is the Google link, Leslie.
Okay.
That was for today's meeting, though. Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, she sent a meeting. She sent. This is where it's confusing. She sent another one out today for March 17th that has the Google Meet invite.
Yeah. Yeah, and we haven't loaded everything into the share drive, so that'll happen in the next couple of days.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job by everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Good night.